Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, this should serve as a warning to all of us. This is going to happen and continue to happen all over the world. When will Western countries like the US smarten up and start keeping a reserve of food for the people instead of exporting it out to other countries? I don't know. And that's why you have to be prepared. All right, so take this as a warning that you need to prepare, because although there are other countries like India who, by the way, are being berated by Western nations that they are stopping exports of grains and cereals. So India takes a look at their population and they say, well, we need to feed our people. So we need to stop exports of food to other countries because we won't have enough for ourselves. And then the Western nations berate India's decision to take care of their people. If you live in a Western nation, that ought to let you know where you stand in accordance to the priority that you have within your government, all right, or your government's response to crises. So prepare accordingly, ladies and gentlemen. Here it reads, we are living in an age of food protectionism, and we are going to live in that age for the future, ladies and gentlemen, not just for the next month or 6 months or a year, but I would say years. Eventually, I believe that here in the United States, people will get angry enough at the shortages, actual shortages, not that things are so expensive, but that they're just not available, period. They'll get angry enough where the government will have to reverse course and start doing the same thing that other countries are doing now, and that is stopping exports. So here we're going to go over a few countries that have already stopped exports and of what. Give you an idea of maybe some things that you are used to getting on a regular basis and whether they're going to become more expensive or maybe unavailable altogether. 5 countries that are banning or restricting major exports to safeguard food supplies as inflation soars. And here it reads, governments around the world are taking steps to safeguard food supplies as inflation soars. But I thought inflation was transitory. Russia and Ukraine have imposed wheat and sunflower oil export curbs amid the war. I believe that Ukraine has also banned the export of corn. All right, don't quote me on that, but I believe corn as well. And it continues on. Indonesia, Argentina, and Kazakhstan are also restricting trade in key produce to control domestic inflation. Public discontent over soaring food prices poses political risks for governments, particularly if shortages present themselves in a major crop producers. That's the case with plant-based cooking oil in Indonesia, where there have been public protests against high prices. As the world's largest producer of palm oil, it is ironic that we actually have difficulty getting cooking oil, said Indonesian President Joko Widodo on April 27. I messed up that last name. According to an official transcript, as president, I cannot allow that to happen. Good for you, sir. Good for you. He added ahead of an export ban on the vegetable oil that went into effect on April 28th. There's a risk that soaring food prices could spur even more protectionist measures across the world. And I don't say that using the word risk is appropriate. I think there's a certainty that it will happen. Rising food prices risk more such protectionist measures globally. And I believe that's true. Countries are waking up, ladies and gentlemen, that this food shortage crisis is going to continue for a while. The last time the world went through an agricultural commodity price shock was in the aftermath of the global financial crisis from 2007 to 2008. At the time, Ukraine and other major grain exporters restricted exports to protect domestic prices. Major rice exporters, India and Vietnam, restricted rice exports to counter food inflation. You all remember me telling you that when the dollar finally crashes, that we are going to have what is a resource issue where people are not going to be afford to eat and a lot of people will starve. Well, a lot of people don't understand that. How is it that the monetary system has anything to do with food? Well, look at here. Back in 2007 and 2008, were we having a crisis that affected the food, primarily? No, it was a housing bubble. It was a housing bubble, the stock market took a dump and all that stuff. What does that have to do with food? Well, ladies and gentlemen, half of every transaction that you make during the day has to do with money. Right? Half of every transaction that you make has to do with money. Somebody gets the money and somebody gives you something for that money. Right? So here, back in 2007 and 2008, that financial crisis itself resulted in food inflation, meaning food shortages as well, because there were farmers, manufacturers that went bankrupt, that couldn't afford to plant a crop, whatever it may have been. But money is directly correlated to how well you will eat in the future. They say here that this scenario could repeat itself, especially since the situation is complicated by even more factors today, including the health crisis-induced supply chain disruptions and the ongoing Russian and Ukrainian conflict. Now, don't let them fool you. It was not the health crisis that did this, the supply chain and all. It was not the health crisis, ladies and gentlemen. It was the policies that were passed and the mandates that were passed by governments that did what's going on right now as far as supply chains and shortages as such. And here are some of the countries, and some of these we already know. Of course, Russia has restricted wheat and sunflower oil shipments. They've also restricted, if not completely banned, the export of wheat. All right. And as we all know, oil and gas and all that kind of stuff that's going on with the European Union right now. Russia is the largest wheat exporter, accounting for about one-fifth of the world's exports of grain. I heard somewhere that between Russia and Ukraine, both of those countries account for about, I think it was like 15% of the world's calories. Now think about that, ladies and gentlemen. That is an astounding figure. 15% of the world's calories pretty much got taken offline when Russia invaded Ukraine and all of these sanctions started being imposed. The country had already introduced export quotas and new taxes on the wheat exports in 2021 to tame domestic food inflation. Inflation is rampant, ladies and gentlemen. When you listen to these pundits on TV talk about that, yes, inflation, we're going to get over this, it's not that bad. A little bit of inflation is actually good, says Ms. Janet Yellen. All right, our Treasury Secretary. When you hear them all say this stuff, think the opposite of what it is that they're saying, because that's really what they're thinking. Ukraine, of course, we know about, has banned the export of food staples. Ukraine is the world's fifth largest exporter of wheat, accounting for about 9% of global export, according to the USDA. And due to the war, the government has banned the export of food staples, including wheat, oats, to ensure there's enough food for their people at home. Can't blame that at all. Indonesia has banned palm oil exports. Indonesia, the world's largest edible oil exporter, said a domestic shortage of cooking oil has prompted it to impose a blanket ban on the export of palm oil that started on April 28th. Argentina is restricting the export of beef before the war to tamp down food inflation. Now, we all know that Argentina is always experiencing one or another type of economic crisis. And of course, right here, as they say, whatever countries got beef from Argentina, now they can pretty much forget about getting beef from that part of the world or from that country. I don't see things getting better in Argentina. I mean, it says here to tamp inflation, which hit 50.9% in 2021. Argentina banned all meat exports last May. I mean, that's good. That's good that they're taking care of the people by banning the meat exports, right? So people can afford to buy that product. But what they don't understand is that if they continue to adhere by the same monetary policies that they have in the past, that they're going to end up in the same place time and time again. And of course, I'm sure you all would not be surprised if I told you that the IMF is going to be there to bail them out once again. And Kazakhstan has restricted wheat and wheat flour exports after domestic prices soared over 30% after the Ukrainian war started. So, ladies and gentlemen, pretty much a common denominator on everything here is inflation. right? Inflation. And we've been told for almost a year now, don't worry about inflation. Inflation is not a big of a deal. We're going to get through this. Ladies and gentlemen, inflation is one thing and one thing alone. It is the theft of your purchasing power, i.e. the theft of your labor. That is exactly what it is. The domestic price of wheat in Kazakhstan has risen by over 30% since the Ukraine war started, per the USDA. That's as Russia has suspended wheat exports to that country. Many flour mill representatives expressed concern about the export restrictions, the high price of domestic wheat, and the lack of Russian wheat imports. What have I told you about sanctions? They don't hurt the governments. They only hurt the people. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Have you heard about any Russian oligarchs going hungry? Have you heard about any Russian oligarchs saying, I can't handle this inflation anymore? I need cheaper bread? Absolutely not, and you never will. Do you ever hear any of the political figures in Cuba saying that they're going hungry, that they can't handle the price of food? Absolutely not, because the sanctions that we have on those countries, they don't hurt the governments. They hurt only the people. And here is another article that I pulled up. It's actually from today, from the 16th of May. And just a few more countries that we may have missed. It says that India banned wheat exports on Saturday as a heat wave curtailed output and domestic prices soared. So India as well has banned wheat exports, and I believe I covered that on my previous video, just lightly though. We have Ukraine here, Indonesia, palm oil, other countries. Hungary banned all grain exports. Serbia restricted the quantities of wheat, corn flour, and cooking oil slated for export. Bulgaria has said it would increase grain reserves and might restrict exports. And here, Argentina, just December of last year, capped the volume of corn and wheat that could be exported in a bid to head off domestic grain shortages and tamp down rising food values. So in addition to the beef that they just recently put a ban on exports, they also already had an export on wheat and corn. And that looks like it's about it for now, ladies and gentlemen. So this is just a sign of the times that we live in, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to continue to get worse little by little, which in a way it's good news for you and me. It gives us more time to prepare. Right? There may be shortages around the world, but as I see it here in the United States, the shortages are not crippling. It's just that the prices are getting a lot higher. I expect to see the price of fuels like gasoline, like heating oils, like liquid natural gas, liquid propane, going up even more, after this summer, going into next winter. I did a video about this, I think it was Sunday, telling you all that you need to prep on your fuels, on your heating fuels. If you use heating fuels to heat your home, you need to get prepped on that, ladies and gentlemen, because I see this winter coming up being a pretty cold one. Not just for people here in the US, but probably more so for people in the EU or in Europe. All right, having said that, I hope you got something out of this. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for joining in. I'm not sure if I'm going to post this video later on tonight, which is the 16th of May. If not, if I get it edited and everything, I'll post it early Tuesday morning, which will be the 17th. Other than that, have a great day. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand that not everyone is in the part of their preparedness plan where they should be storing long-term freeze-dried food. But if you are, take a look at Nutrient Survival. I stand behind this food because it is the most nutrient-dense food in the market. It tastes great, they have outstanding customer service, and the company is run by great people that I call my friends. You're not going to find a more nutrient-dense food that tastes good and is reasonably priced when compared to other major brands. I wouldn't stand behind Nutrient Survival if I didn't personally use it and love it. So feed your freedom with Nutrient Survival.